Roll. Sweet. So what's up, everybody? Thanks for taking the time out to either jump on the call or listen to it later. Today's message is going to be on one of my favorite things to sell, the ultimate upgrade. So a couple of things I'll be discussing. The first point is what is and what is not an ultimate upgrade. Basically, another point is going to be, when is it, the best time, and the order and structure for it, and then a couple other keys. But first, I want to jump in, like I said, start off with what it is and what it isn't. So a lot of times people will spend too much time, especially at the booth when you're working with the customer in already a shorter amount of time. They'll spend too much time trying to figure out exactly every single like knife that or piece or whatever that customer has, when that really doesn't matter. As long as you have a general idea, that's all that really matters. And they try to, like, a lot of people try to, oh, you have a studio set, let's get you, and you're trying to upgrade them to a signature. Like, oh, you need this. It's like, no, an ultimate upgrade is 9 knives, a block, and 4 table or steak knives. That's what it is. At the end of the day, it's 9 knives, a block, and 4 table or steak knives, right? And what's great is when you utilize a deal sheet, right? It brings more, I guess, legitimacy and, like, oh, this is actually a thing to it, right? The deal sheet, and combined with the ultimate upgrade brochures. If you don't have one of those, highly recommend you get one. You can lit order it. It's like, I don't know, pennies to buy one, right? But basically, and what's nice, I might even grab mine if we've got time, but basically the way it's set up on there, it's set up like as a normal upgrade, right? Actually, the one that I have has the 9 knives, block, table or steak knives, and it has the 3 cutting boards and the shears in there. So you can leverage that. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically what's great with that is because it's set up that way, you can actually, so say someone's like, oh, I'm not, not going to use a cleaver or use whatever, right? You can customize that out, right? And the price point is set at what it already set at, right? So you have, room to either give a deal or give something for free without necessarily like hurting your CPO or, like, off the bat, which is great. So with that being 9 knives, it doesn't matter which 9 knives, right? Now I'm traditionally going to run through my normal approach, like usual, right? But then if I can tell that they're not going to use something or they say it, I'm like, oh yeah, then I know, like, just keep, after I hit 9, do 1 or 2 more and then build it up to customize it. So the structure of it, basically, you start off with 2 knives that make sense, right? And that's usually 9.9 times out of 10, it's going to be the 4-inch paring knife and the petite santoku. The reason why everybody loves is the normal paring knife, right? Just sometimes it's too short, right? So they made a longer one. So this one you can actually cut on the cutting board with, right? And it makes a lot of sense, right? Same idea with the chopping knife. Everybody chops veggies. This especially makes sense if they have a French chef. It's like, but this one's like just can be a little overkill. And if it's like the French chef Maya, it's kind of like the Michael Myers knife, right? So this is a lot more practical, everyday knife, right? Petite santoku. You could even do 7-inch if they have the longer one, but I go with those 2 to start, right? Then a knife, where if you do cut food with, or just a knife to get that wow factor, and that would be the cheese knife, right? So the third piece will be the cheese knife. Now, if they have the cheese knife already, what I'm going to next, this is a great tip that I learned from Jason. I'll go to the Santoku cheese knife, right? But the reason why you go with the cheese knife is, say if you you could either, I mean, you could just cut leather, but you cut with that knife, right? And that builds the wow, right? Especially if, you know, if you have the time, or if you want to, you know, cut food, you cut the potato with it, right? Have them use a trimmer. Then you cut then you have them use the cheese knife to cut, right? And then it's like, wow, right? And it's like, you can use from there. So that trimmer was you getting by all these years, and then the cheese knife is you having the right tool for the right job. And then from there, it's just, you know, just how that cut through the potato. That's how, you know, the hearty slicer does on, you know, ribs, tough sausage, salami, sweet potatoes, whatever. That's how this one does. That's how the boning knife is on raw meat. You know, right? So it's two knives that make sense, one knife to cut with, right? Then you can either, yeah, then would be the kind of like the next four, right? So you kind of just transition, like the same kind of, you know, just how this did that. That's how with these two, right? And then you're gonna finish with like your two favorites, right? So that can be different for everybody, but you want to finish with the two that you're going to be most excited about. For me, it's typically going to be the salmon knife, um, right? Because you show that you also show the Jason Jeffrey watermelon video, right? You know, a lot of people react well to that one. So it's typically going to be that one, and then usually, like, actually I'll usually do like the boning knife and then do that one, but it can vary, right? The main part is you want to finish with the um, two favorites. So again, it's two knives that make sense, one to cut with, the middle three or four knives, and your two favorites, right? And then what's nice, if you have the sheet where it's listed with the shears in there, if they don't have the shears, you know, leave it in there. And even if they do have the shears, because I've closed upgrades, I'm like, hey, the package actually comes with an extra pair of shears too, which we know everyone, you know, loves these, so it's great to have another pair. You know, sometimes or most of the time I'm taking out, but saying that, you know, there's been a couple of times where I added in there and it's like an extra 100 and some CPO, right? So, and then I'm closing on a bigger number, right? Um, and then as far as like with customizing goes, right? Say it's someone, if they're not, you know, usually the two, kind of the two knives that people get the least excited about, like rep wise, is usually like the cleaver and the petite slicer, right? So either A, get more excited about those pieces, or you can customize those, right? And it can, you know, obviously vary per um, client, right? With some easy things to customize in there. Just, you know, I like to use what they're already excited about, right? Because then it's just like no brainer ones, right? For instance, like, you know, they love the trimmer. So yeah, they actually made this. So this is like the new and improved version of the trimmer. And I'm holding up like the Santoku trimmer, kind of like yours. Everybody loves it. Just sometimes like you only use kind of like the front half of that, like hitting your knuckles. And they're like, yeah, yeah. So this one, since it's like wider and thicker, it's like twice as good for, you know, lemons, limes, oranges, tomatoes, stuff like that. And it's just like easy. Um, that's a really easy one. I like going with the bird speak paring knife, right? A little curved paring knife. How I sell that, I'm like, yeah, what's nice with this is really good for anything kind of round or things with pits or seeds in there. So peaches, plums, mangoes, avocados, stuff like that. And what's cool too, when you do need to use it on the cutting board, only the tip touches, right? And I'll show them like, so the rest of the knife stays sharp a lot longer. So those are two easy ones. Like I said, the Santoku cheese knife, how I sell that. And this is like, if I'm talking to someone who's got a cheese knife, 9 times out of 10, they're going to get this because it's like, they, you know, you've seen people, they love how much, you know, how much they love the cheese knife. Like, oh yeah, it's just like your cheese knife, right? Everybody loves the cheese knife. The only problem with this is the tip isn't sharp. It's good for spreading stuff, but you can't really cut with it. So they made this version where the tip is actually sharp. So I like it for, you know, jalapenos and peppers, the top side of tomatoes, potatoes, obviously cheese, that kind of stuff. And they're just like, oh, that's great, right? Easy, easy things to add in there. And also, you know, a lot of people don't realize this too, but you could also, I mean, so many extra, well, first off, there's so many extra knives that you can put in there, but then also you could also do a duplicate of one of their favorite ones, right? It doesn't have to make sense to you for it to make sense for them, right? But there's plenty of people who have multiples of things, and I'm sure I've run into people on service calls who had like 3 or 4 of the same thing. Actually, there was, a couple of people where it was like they had 6 trimmers. This was before the steak knife existed, but you get the point, right? Um, so the second thing, so with the upgrades here, is it just makes the most sense, right? It makes the most sense, and it's the best way to buy a Cutco. Because even if they're a 1 or 2 piece at a time customer, we don't just say it. That really is the most expensive way to do it, right? I mean, if they bought a ultimate set at full retail, no discounts, no free stuff a decade ago, right? That still would have been cheaper than them piecing it out all the way up till now, right? Because not only do they get the set deal, right, but you're also beating price increase inflation, right? Plus they have it longer. So even if you sell it with not $1 off, it's cheaper than buying it individual over and over again. Right? And it's probably still even better if they bought like freaking buy 3 get ones. I didn't do the math on it, but it's still probably better in the long run, regardless. Right? So you just have to believe this is the best way to get Cutco, because it is, right? They're getting more stuff. They're getting the right tools for the right job. They get a place to store all their knives properly, right? Because if they just bought, if they had a homemaker and they just buy 1 or 2 pieces, what I've found is that even if they're using those pieces, they're actually going to still use them less because those pieces are in the drawer. Like I just had a lady the other day who was like, everything didn't fit in her block and she had some extra stuff in the drawer, and she was like, yeah, I don't see them as much, I don't use them. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Out of sight, out of mind. They say that for a reason. But when everything's all in one spot, all right there for them, they're going to use it all the time, right? Which is what you want them to do, right? If they spent the money, you want them to use it, and they want to use it, right? So you got to believe it's the best thing for them. It's great for you because you make 1,500, at least 1,500 CPO, right? Maybe more, maybe less. More if you do steak knives, and don't give a stupid deal. But it's good for you. It's good for them, and it's even good for the people who'll see that, right? What I mean by that is they'll have people who see their set. This isn't every customer, right? But you will get people who see their set and like, I want that next. Because I remember I did a service call last year, and I had already sold them an ultimate, and then it was like a friend was over, and I was selling her a custom, or she didn't even have any Cutco, and I ended up basically selling her a custom homemaker, but it was in an ultimate block because it just I think it might have had steak knives too, but it made sense. It was like, oh, they have this block, I'm going to fill this up eventually, right? So it was almost like an upgrade to a new person, right? So you're gonna get like a trickling effect, and I've heard I've had people are like, oh, my friend's got the big set, I want that set. So that kind of um, long term, like uh, social proof, I guess you'd call it, right? So that's another key part there. And then my next point here is just to have the discipline. This kind of ties in the last one, but have the discipline to show it to every customer every single time, right? So it can be very easy to just show, or it can be very easy, especially for like the newer reps on the team, to just go into a couple pieces, or a 5-piece or a 3-piece special, and like it, like, not to name any names. So I was working a show. He'll probably watch the recording and realize it. But me and Kevin were working with a newer rep. I won't say your name, but basically he was like offering like 3 and 5-piece specials off the bat, and me and Kevin were like, what the F are you doing? Show him the upgrade. Show him the upgrade. And like, then it was like, I closed an upgrade. I was like, yeah, you know how? Because I showed it to him first, and then like it was like a interesting situation where like kind of split off, and then like Kevin helped him close like an upgrade with the, because he had like 2 people. But it's like, if you don't show it, you're not gonna sell it. No one's gonna say, hey, why don't you show me this thing that I don't know about? No, they don't realize that you can even do that. Most people think you have to buy a whole set. That's why people are like, can you buy it? Can you buy da 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 individual? It's like, yeah, you can buy whatever you want, but the upgrade is the best way to do it, and they're not going to know if you don't show them. Another thing with showing them, because I mentioned the brochure earlier, if you have the upgrade brochure, when you show it, actually, I'm just going to get it because it's not going to make sense otherwise. Give me 1 second. So with the brochure here, when you show it to people, just open it on this side, right? Because this shows exactly what I'm talking about, right? 4 table steak knives, 9 knives, and then the block, right? But if you open it up all the way, it shows all the knives, which to a customer is confusing, right? When you initially show it, you just show this, right? And then if you have to, then you show this, but don't open it all the way because it gets confusing. I just want to bring that point up before I forgot to say that. But like I was saying, no one's gonna know it if you don't show it. Which, having this, right, like I said, brings legitimacy and like awareness to it, right? But this will also, if you have this out, will remind you to show it, right? There's a reason we don't have a freaking 3-piece special binder or a 5-piece special thing, because that's not what you want to sell. You want to sell these. You want to sell these, baby. You want to sell these. So again, just to kind of tie everything together, summarize what I just said. 1, we went over what is and is not an upgrade. An upgrade is not figuring out every single thing that they own at home. What it is getting a general idea and selling them 9 knives, a block, and 4 table or steak knives. Second thing, second thing, we went over the structure of it. Third thing was that it makes sense and it's the best way for people to buy Cutco. And then the 4th point there was to remember to show it to every Cutco owner. All right, I've been talking fast with energy. Who's got some questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead, Seth.
Are you assuming right away that they have a homemaker or that they're having a signature, or what's that?
So this is based off of them having a homemaker, which is what the majority of people, if they have a set, they either have a homemaker or less majority of the time. So I would assume that. If you find out that they have more, like once you start showing knives, and if they're like, oh, I have that, that's when you kind of have those pivot pieces I was talking about. Like, oh, they have the cheese knife. Oh, great, yeah. you're actually going to love this one. And then you go into the Santoku or the mini or whatever, right? That's where you have those pieces for, right? But I would assume that they have a homemaker or less.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Who else has a question?
I got another question actually.
Go ahead, Sam. You keep
Yeah, so say they have like a galley or God forbid a studio set, right? How do you so you sell them the ultimate package and then you fill in those empty spots later, or how's that work?
I don't really care too much to sell. I don't even really care too much to go over the homemaker pieces because you can end up I'm talking specifically at the booth, right? Because you can end up wasting time on things that are less exciting, if you will. But I mean, I don't, and it's fine for them to have empty slots, right? If them having empty slots is actually is a selling point for me and not a negative thing. And let me give you an example. Because when I drop down, like if I have to drop down from the full upgrade to just a partial upgrade, and it's like 5 of the knives instead of all 9. One of the things that I'm saying, like when I'm rebuilding the value, I'm like, and what's great about this is we still get you this block, and you're gonna have a couple of empty slots. So that way down the road, when you do want to just get a couple pieces, you can just buy those couple pieces. You don't have to worry about buying the block, right? You still get the package deal on it now, and you don't have to buy that later. You still have a place for everything, right?
Cool, thank you, Matt.
Does that answer your question?
Sure does. Yeah.
Where can we buy that lit, the ultimate upgrade for that?
You can get it off Vector Connect. It's the item number is L356. L356.
Is that already in the binder that we get from Vast Action or no?
No. This well, technically I got this from Dave Bush sent it to me, but you just, like I said, you can just buy it off Lit.
Got
if
it.
you don't have one of these, I recommend the standard trifold too.
And Seth might have asked this, but I was trying to get my audio together. It was tweaking. But I know you say you don't have to figure out everything that they have at home. So on let's say they have like a studio set, a couple pieces. Obviously, an ultimate upgrade would just be more than just 9 knives. So how do you approach that situation?
Yep. So I treat the upgrade just like a package, right? So because a lot of people think it's filling out everything that they have, and that's not necessarily true. I just treat it as a package. And when you treat it that way, it's a lot easier for it to make sense to them, for you to sell it, and for it to be like a full rounded, like legit thing. You know what I mean? And it's a lot less work you have to do on the back end, right? Because if I show them this deal sheet, right? Go to it. If I tell them, hey, yeah, this is 9 knives, a block, and 4 table knives, right? And I just show it to them like that, then it makes sense. And then what's nice, what I can do from there, I'm like, hey, how I build up customizing too, by the way. Hey, normally anytime and this phrasing works if it ends up being less or more, right? Hey, normally anytime you break up a package, it would normally change the price of the package. But what I'll do is I'll make sure to cover any difference for you. I'll make sure that it's the same, right? And like I said, and like I just said, it's a good thing for them to have those extra slots if they do, because right when they do want just a piece or two down the road or something new comes out, they can just add that. They don't have to um, buy the block and buy all the they don't have to get the rest of it later, right? They can just add into there. That's like I've had a bunch of people where I sold them partial upgrades, which is like 5 knives and an ultimate block, and they've ordered just a couple more knives, and they just throw it right in there, right? And what's great for them is they paid the price of the ultimate block X amount of years ago. They got it packaged together, right? And all their stuff's in one spot, and it all fits in there. Versus, if I just sold them, 5 knives on their own, which I'll still sell, but right, they don't have the block for it, so they're probably going to use those new knives less frequently than the ones that are in the block, right? So, does that make sense? I kind of brought in a couple of things to kind of give you a answer that, but
kind of not really, but we can talk one-on-one. Yeah.
I kind of Seth asked the same question, so I try to explain it differently. So,
right.
But basically, the gist of it is, it's okay for them to have empty slots, and I promote that as a positive thing and not a negative thing.
Got it.
Yep.
So they are aware. So obviously, it's not just a surprise. You send them the upgrade, and they're like, "Wait, it's not filled in." You kind of let them know that.
No, I've literally done ultimate upgrades for people who had like 3 or 4 knives before, so they have a lot open.
So I'm saying, you let them know.
Yeah, right? They know. Yeah. Things only become, most of the time, things only become a big deal if we make them a big deal, right? So as long as it's not a big deal to you, it's not going to be a big deal to them. Especially if you frame it as a positive thing and not a negative thing.
I think that's a super good idea, because you can advertise it or like promote it as it's one of our most popular packages at this show. And that way, like, you might have a couple slots open, but that way you get to try out the knives, see which ones you like, and then eventually get similar ones to fill up those slots later down the road. Like, I like Santoku style knives, so I know, like, I wish I had slots in my block so I could get some more Santoku knives. So I think I just need to get another block.
Yep. And that's where
I like that mindset.
That's where you said another block. That's where the fan set comes in.
What's the fan set?
That's the fan set.
Oh my gosh.
That'll be a separate call. I'm not I haven't perfected selling that yet, but Jason has been teaching us some stuff on that. But
I'm gonna have that someday.
It's 2 Ulti blocks worth of stuff. So it's pretty great. And you can even, and another thing, you even be like, hey, Cutco comes out with a new knife every year or two. So, that way you got a couple, you got some room to add on if you see something you like then. So. Yeah, who else has a question or comment? Concern? Query? Any of those? Or anything?
I guess on that same note, like, if not to harp on this, but if they were to say, when you have the empty slots, like, you can try out the ones that you can get a feel for the ones you like, don't like. How does that make sense for them moving forward? Like, if they end up not liking one of the pieces, then what? Then when they just replace that piece with the slot that was taken already, or no?
I have never had anyone call me and be like, hey, well, I have from an upgrade. I haven't.
Well, I'm thinking
had
about
any,
more so on the spot. I'm talking about like if that's their objection or they have that thought on the spot. Obviously, yeah. Once they have it.
So one thing I got from Jason, which is not, this is cool that he says, is just to kind of drive home like that this is a package and it's like a set thing, right? It's like what's great with this, the way they package it together with the deal here. I mean, you can honestly throw one of these out or give them away or something, and it wouldn't change the price that much. So that kind of, I've also done it where I'll incorporate like two things together. Like there's, for instance, I was working with one lady. I kind of incorporated the upgrade and the family program together. So hey, because it was like, there's like sometimes it can be it was like hard to get the 9 knives, right? But I'm like, hey, what we can do is, I think it's like 4 or 5 for her, but then it was like another 4 or 5 knives were gonna be like it's like a wedding gift or Chris. It was like some sort of gift, right? Ended up being a gift for like her daughter. But I'm like, hey, we can, you know, incorporate this under this program to get you this deal, and it just made sense, right? So it's like it doesn't matter, like I said this a couple weeks ago when somebody was like talking about I don't know if I'll use both forks or whatever. I'm like, would you use one of them? Or yeah, I'm like, wait, listen, I'll be honest with you. With the discount here and what the price of the fork costs, you could throw the fork out. It really doesn't matter, but it would actually cost you more if you broke this up and bought it without the fork, right? So I'm like, hey, it would cost you more to take this out than you just keep it and you throw it away because it comes together as a set. And like I said, that's the beauty of with this, you can customize it as well. So did that answer your question? I know it sounds like I think I
Sound, yeah, for my part, yeah.
okay. Like I said, the simpler you keep it, the more you'll sell them and the easier it'll be. Block, 9 knives, 4 table or steak knives. And then, like I said, the what's nice about the one that I use, it has the cutting boards and the shears and the sharpener in there too. And you can even what you can do too for customizing, if you can't get to 9 knives, do 2 gadgets as a knife, right? Do 2 gadgets or do like 2 extra steak knives, or two table knives, excuse me. The steak knife is closer to like a knife price, but you could do like 2 extra table knives as a knife price. I've had it where like, oh, they said like, oh, we lost a couple table knives. I'm like, you know what? And if you go ahead and do this now, I know you said you lost a couple of these. It normally comes with 4. I'll just give you. I'll buy you 2 more, so that way you have your total of 12, right? Any other questions? Craig, Livy, Seth? All right. Hopefully y'all got some value out of that, learned some stuff, and hopefully we'll see the chat blowing up with upgrades soon. All right. Well, let me.
You already know.
Yeah, buddy. Sweet. Well, I'll let y'all go, but before I do that, make sure to post in the group chat your top takeaway from the call, and yeah, the greatest, like I said, the greatest tip to me is if you go out and implement it. So let's see that chat blowing up, and then we'll see y'all in 2 weeks for the next call, which will be, what's today, the 4th, so that would be the 18th, right? Yeah, the 18th. See y'all on the 18th, 4 o'clock. Look out, I'll have the next few topics posted soon for the next like 2 to 4 calls, so you can kind of see what's coming. And then if you have any requests on something you'd like to hear about, feel free to shoot me a message about that. But aside from that, like I said, put your takeaways in chat, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, y'all. Have a blessed day, and let's sell some knives, baby.